Can you imagine a man who does not need power, respect, status, wealth, and love? The most dangerous man is not the one with weapons or wealth. It is the man who needs nothing. No army can control him, no law can bind him, no promise can lure him in. He is untouchable. Why? Because you can't bribe him with approval. You can't threaten him with loss. You can't seduce him with promises. The very power that rules over everyone else collapses when it meets someone who no longer plays the game. Carl Jung called this the state of individuation, when a person unites with their own soul, embraces both shadow and light, and reconciles the hidden parts of themselves. Something unshakable is born. A man becomes his own fortress. And here's the secret. The system doesn't fear rebels. It fears the ones who simply stop belonging. Because when you need nothing, you are free. And that freedom shakes the world. Imagine yourself moving through a crowd. The city pulses with urgency. Neon lights scream. Screens glow in trembling hands. Feet pound in rhythm to the heartbeat of commerce. Everyone is chasing something. Likes, money, fleeting ecstasies dressed as happiness. And then your eyes fall upon one figure unmoved. No scrolling, no rushing, no performance. Stillness. A silence so complete it disrupts the noise around him. He is not lazy nor indifferent. He has found what cannot be sold, inner sovereignty. This is the privilege Jung spoke of, the rare privilege to truly become oneself. The man who has uncovered this state no longer asks the world for permission to exist, and that simple refusal to need becomes the most dangerous rebellion of all. The world feeds on dependency. Every ad whispers, "You are incomplete." Every ideology murmurs, "You are lost until we give you meaning." Every platform insists, "You are invisible until we show you to the crowd." But what happens when someone no longer believes? Jung saw it clearly. Societies survive by keeping men unconscious. The undiscovered self, as he called it, is not simply a philosophical phrase. It is the hidden law of control. The crowd remains hypnotized, wearing masks they believe are their faces, forgetting that beneath the performance, something eternal waits. But when a man pulls off the mask, when he sees his own shadow and does not run, when he dares to embrace both monster and angel within, he ceases to be useful to the machine. He becomes untouchable. The mask, what Jung called the persona, suffocates most lives. It is crafted carefully, polite smiles, acceptable opinions, curated identities that win applause. People die wearing masks they never realized weren't their skin. But those who begin individuation pull thread by thread at this costume until its fabric unravels. And as the mask falls, they encounter something terrifying, the shadow. Jung's insight was merciless. Enlightenment is not the gathering of halos, but the confrontation with one's darkness. To reject anger, envy, lust, fear, is to remain their prisoner. To accept them is to gain freedom. The man who looks his shadow in the eye and says, "Yes, you are mine," becomes immune to shame. No preacher, politician, or influencer can bind him with guilt because he has already walked through hell and shaken hands with its demons. It is here that control collapses. Shame has no hold where acceptance has entered. Approval becomes irrelevant to one who has forgiven himself. Criticism loses its sting against one who has already judged himself and survived the verdict. Jung called the shadow a moral task, an effort of the soul itself, and those who undertake it emerge neither saints nor villains, but whole. Completeness, not perfection, is what makes them impossible to govern. But individuation does not stop with shadow. Deeper still lies the inner marriage. Within each man breathes the hidden feminine, the anima, intuition, tenderness, vulnerability. Within each woman rests the animus, assertion, clarity, will. Society teaches us to search endlessly for our other half in another body, another heart. But Jung revealed the illusion. These halves already live inside us. Men, desperate for the woman who will awaken their softness, never turn inward to find her waiting within. Women, longing for the man who will grant them strength, never notice their own fire. But the man who has embraced his anima, The woman who has claimed her animus, these are individuals whole unto themselves. They do not beg completion. They do not worship the myth of the missing piece. They enter love not as beggars, but as sovereigns. Two flames that meet not to consume each other, but to burn brighter together. Beyond this, Jung spoke of the self, the totality, the regulating center of the psyche. Here lies the final transformation: inner authority. When the self awakens, the need for external leaders, gurus, saviors dissolves. The voice of truth no longer thunders from pulpits or podiums. It whispers from the depths of the heart. Goose, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. The awakened do not chase dreams crafted by marketers and politicians. They walk already awake, their vision sharpened by inward light. Such people terrify the powerful, not because they resist, but because they cannot be captured. History itself proves it. Jung, when he broke away from Freud, endured mockery, exile, and professional assassination. Yet, he endured, because his authority did not come from others. He had swallowed his own darkness, integrated his own fragments, found his own center. That is the immunity factor. You may strip away titles, wealth, reputation, but you cannot touch the self. And this terrifies every institution built on fear, because such a person cannot be forced back into dependency. Education whispers, you cannot know until we certify you. Religion warns, you cannot find meaning until we bless you. Politics promises, you cannot be safe until we protect you. But the individuated man knows, authority lives within. He learns but never becomes a disciple. He listens but never surrenders his thinking. Jung himself mocked those who worshipped his words rather than seeking their own vision. Thank God I am Jung, not a Jungian. That is the stance of sovereignty. The political system trembles before such men. Politics thrives on the savior illusion. Choose me and I will deliver you. Fear drives votes, and longing for meaning fills movements. But when a man ceases to outsource salvation, when he realizes his freedom does not depend on a flag or a party, then propaganda starves. Fear collapses. He becomes what politicians fear most, one who will not be frightened into obedience. And social media, that vast cathedral of validation, falters before such independence. Its entire altar is built on likes and applause, on the fragile need to be seen. But the individuated soul carries its own mirror. He does not dance for strangers, nor bleed for recognition. He is terrifyingly invisible to the system, because he no longer feeds its addiction. Imagine millions refusing to perform. Imagine billions withdrawing their hunger for hearts and thumbs up. The algorithm itself would starve. This is why individuation is not just psychology, it is rebellion. Even love, the most intimate of illusions, is reshaped. Society has sold romance as salvation, the missing half, the soulmate, the other who completes. But Jung whispered otherwise. True partnership is not fusion of need, but the collision of completeness. Two whole beings who meet not to fill voids, but to transform together. A conscious partnership is born, not of desperation, but of abundance. Such love cannot be bought by industries that thrive on dysfunction. It becomes immune to manipulation because it is founded on wholeness, not hunger. Yet, beware the trap of spiritual bypass. Many dream of individuation without paying its price. They seek light while fleeing shadow, enlightenment without descent. But Jung warned, no tree grows to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. The journey demands a dark night of the soul, where illusions shatter and forgotten wounds rise. It is lonely. It is brutal. But without it, there is no freedom. And this path isolates you. As you stop performing, many will leave. They loved the persona, not the person. They applauded the mask, not the soul. Authentic loneliness arrives like winter, but within that cold, you find the warmth of your own fire. Better to walk alone in truth than be embraced in lies. From this solitude springs the most vital connection, the relationship with oneself. To sit in silence and not flee. To gaze inward, and not tremble. That is the beginning of sovereignty. With sovereignty comes power, but not the kind the world worships, not domination, not conquest, but quiet authority. The presence that speaks without words, that commands without demanding. People feel it, the difference between one who seeks approval and one who carries no need. Such a person cannot be bought, bullied, or broken. Systems call them selfish, antisocial, arrogant, because they cannot be used. But their presence alone spreads contagion. Individuation, Jung knew, is infectious. Authenticity awakens authenticity. One man who stands in his truth can ignite 1,000 more. This is the hidden revolution, not banners and barricades, but consciousness itself rising, one soul at a time. And as more souls awaken, the collective shadow begins to dissolve. Hatred loses its fuel when individuals face the darkness within instead of projecting it onto others. Fear-based politics collapses when people no longer need enemies to feel secure. Consumerism shrinks when human beings stop trying to purchase their missing pieces. This is why systems of control tremble before the individuated person. They are not only free themselves, they quietly awaken freedom in others. From this awakening flows creativity unbound by market or manipulation. Jung observed that true creation comes not from intellect but from necessity of the soul. The individuated individual paints, writes, builds, and loves not to impress, but because expression is as natural as breathing. What is born from this space is incorruptible art, unshackled thought, and ways of living that can never be owned. These people become the wisdom keepers, the ones every era tries to silence because they embody the possibility of inner authority against outer rule. Even death itself loses its sting for the individuated man. He has already buried the false self, already surrendered the masks that most cling to until the grave. Having faced the shadow and embraced the self, he greets death not as a thief, but as a companion, knowing that the purpose of life was never to avoid its end, but to live consciously before it arrives. In this way, he dies as he lived, free, sovereign, beyond control. So what remains is the challenge: to stop running, to stop outsourcing meaning, to face the shadow and claim the light it conceals, to step off the stage of performance and stand alone in the rawness of being. It is not rebellion in the streets, but rebellion in the soul that transforms the world. The man who needs nothing cannot be bent by shame, bought by wealth, or swayed by fear. He becomes, in Jung's words, the conscious individual in a world still asleep. And if you take even a single step toward that awakening, question one belief, integrate one fragment of shadow, claim one piece of your forgotten self, you are already dangerous to the systems that profit from your sleep. The man who needs nothing is indeed the greatest threat, not because he seeks to destroy, but because his very being proves there is another way to live. To taste such freedom even once is to know you can never return to chains. That is the gift, the terror, and the destiny of true psychological independence.